This story isn't about strength or weapons. It's about how humans evaluate risk differently, and why ignoring instincts almost got an entire class killed. Krell had been administering security assessments for 17 cycles, and not once, not even during the incident with the Vaxorian who tried to eat the holographic projector, had he encountered a cadet as baffling as the human. She stood there in the prep chamber, all 5'0" of paranoid, twitchy mammalian nonsense, checking the corners of the room like something might leap out and devour her. Which was absurd. This was the Galactic Academy's most secure testing facility. The walls were reinforced with quantum-locked titanium alloys. The doors required 3 separate biometric scans. A small asteroid couldn't breach this place. Yet there she was, Renavas' newest addition to the Academy's security program, acting like she'd walked into a trap instead of a simple competency evaluation. Krell's gill slits fluttered with amusement. This was going to be entertaining. The observation deck hummed with the usual pre-test chatter. Krell's colleagues had gathered as they always did when humans were involved, because watching humans attempt galactic standard protocols was apparently the universe's favorite comedy show. 20 credits as she fails within 4 minutes, chirped San, a Porexian whose crystalline body refracted the ambient light into annoying rainbow patterns. 3 minutes, countered Vel, a Thoraxian whose mandibles clicked with poorly suppressed laughter. Humans always go for the obvious threat. They have no subtlety, no nuance. It is all, what is their phrase? Guns blazing. Krell waved a webbed hand dismissively. The test is designed to filter exactly that kind of thinking. We need security officers who can identify real threats, not just react to whatever makes the loudest noise. The spot the danger assessment was beautifully simple, which was precisely why it worked so well. Cadets entered a holographic environment, a busy spaceport terminal filled with hundreds of simulated beings going about their business. Somewhere in that crowd lurked threat. Could be 1. Could be 7. Could be the armed Kragnoth mercenary with visible weapons. Could be the sweet elderly Paxian grandmother with her shopping bags. The cadets had 6 minutes to identify every genuine threat, and only the genuine threats. False positives meant failure just as surely as missed dangers. After all, what good was a security officer who arrested innocent civilians, or worse, started an interstellar incident because they couldn't tell the difference between a tourist and a terrorist? The human will pick the biggest aliens, Anne said confidently. They always do. Their primitive fight-or-flight response targets size first, capability second. If they even get that far, Vel added. Most humans freeze when overstimulated. Too much sensory input, too many variables. Their brains simply cannot process. Gentlemen, please, Krell interrupted, though his tone suggested he agreed completely. Let us at least pretend to maintain professional objectivity. The testing chamber below held 6 cadets today. A Xanthuri, all 4 arms and serene confidence. 2 Ylmerians, their hive mind link giving them an unfair advantage that Krell pretended not to notice because their species funded a significant portion of the academy. A Crovasian, squat and methodical. A Felaxian whose compound eyes could literally see in 17 different spectrums simultaneously. And then there was Renavas, human, who was currently eyeing the emergency exit like she was calculating how fast she could reach it. Look at her, Val snorted. She has not even entered the test, and already she is planning her escape. Typical human cowardice masked as caution, Krell had to admit. The human didn't inspire confidence. She was small by galactic standards, barely reaching the shoulder of the Xanthuri beside her. Her species had no natural armor, no venomous capabilities, no enhanced sensory organs, just soft skin, blunt teeth, and an unfortunate tendency to bleed when poked too hard. Evolution's participation trophy, some called them, but they'd been granted provisional entry into the galactic community 3 cycles ago, which meant the Academy had to accept them into training programs. Politics. Always politics. Initiating test sequence, Krell announced, pressing the activation panel. The holographic spaceport materialized around the cadets in a shimmer of light and quantum rendering. It was perfect, as always. Krell had designed this scenario himself. Every detail accounted for, every variable controlled. The crowd patterns followed authentic behavioral algorithms. The ambient noise matched exactly what you'd hear in Terminal 6 on Proxima Station. Even the smell was accurate. That particular combination of ozone, recirculated air, and questionable food court offerings. 6 distinct threats were hidden in the crowd. A saboteur carrying an electromagnetic pulse device. An unlicensed weapons dealer making a handoff. A kidnapper tracking a target. A data thief executing a network infiltration. A biological contaminant smuggler. And, Krell's personal favorite, a seemingly innocent young Plexian girl who was actually a grown assassin using a holographic disguise. positioned directly behind the cadets as they spawned into the scenario. That last one got everyone. Every single time. Because the trick wasn't just spotting danger ahead of you, it was remembering that danger could come from anywhere, including the one direction most species never bothered to check. Behind them, timer starting, Krell said, leaning forward with anticipation. Let us see how our cadet class performs today. The Xanthari immediately began a methodical forward scan, all four eyes working in coordinated patterns, professional, textbook. The Yulnarians moved as one, their shared consciousness splitting attention efficiently. The Crovasian activated its threat analysis implants. The Phylaxian's eyes shifted through multiple spectrums, cataloging every being in its field of vision. And the human spun around and stared directly at the little girl behind her. What is she doing? Zan asked. Krell frowned. I have no idea. The Xanthari moved with practiced efficiency, his primary eye scanning the crowd while his secondary pair monitored the upper walkways. Textbook threat assessment, zone by zone, sector by sector. Within 30 seconds he'd flagged the weapons dealer, who'd made the fatal mistake of checking his surroundings too frequently. Guilty behavior, obvious tells. The Xanthari marked him with a confident gesture and moved on. Excellent start, Krell noted, making marks on his datapad. The Xanthari continues to impress. The Yulnarians split their attention beautifully, one tracking crowd patterns while the other focused on anomalies. Their hive-mind connection meant they processed information at nearly double the speed of individual beings. Within 45 seconds they'd identified both the weapons dealer and the data thief, whose neural interface was emitting traceable signals as she attempted her network breach. 2 for 2. Krell nodded approvingly. The Crovasian's implants were doing the heavy lifting, scanning for concealed weapons, chemical signatures and behavioral inconsistencies. A bit dependent on technology perhaps, but effective. He'd tagged the saboteur, whose electromagnetic pulse device was generating a faint energy signature that the implants picked up immediately. The Phylaxian was having the time of her life, all 17 visual spectrums working overtime. She could see heat signatures, electrical fields, pheromone trails, and quantum fluctuations. Within 2 minutes she'd identified 4 of the 6 threats, missing only the biological smuggler, whose containment unit was too well shielded, and the disguised assassin because, well, everyone missed the assassin. Everyone except, apparently, the human. Renavos hadn't moved forward, not one step. She stood in her starting position, turned completely around, staring at the Plexian girl with an intensity that was frankly unsettling. The girl, bless her holographic heart, played her part perfectly. Big innocent eyes, a small stuffed creature clutched in her arms. She looked around the terminal with the wide-eyed wonder of a child on her first space journey. She was adorable, harmless, the absolute last thing anyone would identify as a threat. Is the human malfunctioning? Bell asked, mandibles twitching with confusion. Perhaps she has frozen, Sam suggested. Sensory overload, as I predicted, but Krell was watching more carefully now. The human wasn't frozen. Her eyes were moving, tracking every micro-expression on the girl's face. Her posture was tense, ready. Her hand hovered near her side where a security officer would carry a weapon. She thinks the child is dangerous, Krell said slowly, disbelief coloring his tone. That is absurd, Vel said flatly. The child is positioned behind the starting point. Standard threat assessment doctrine is to clear forward zones first, then expand to peripheral areas. You never start by looking backward. That is not how security works. Krell had to agree. In his 17 cycles of administering this test, not one cadet had ever started by turning around. Why would they? The test was called Spot the Danger, plural. There were multiple threats to find. Wasting time on a single target, especially one that appeared so obviously harmless, was strategic suicide. The timer hit 3 minutes. The Xanthari had now identified 5 of the 6 threats, missing only the assassin. He was moving through the crowd with confidence, his training evident in every calculated step. The Yulnarians were at 4 identifications, working in perfect synchronization. The Crovasian had tagged 3 threats and was scanning the biological smuggler's location, his implants working to penetrate the shielding. The Phylaxian had confidently marked 5 threats and was now doing a secondary sweep, her compound eyes shifting through spectrums like a living sensor array. And the human had identified exactly 1 target. The little girl, who she was still staring at, like the child had personally insulted her ancestors. This is painful to watch, Zan said, his crystalline form dimming with second-hand embarrassment. She has identified 1 potential threat in 3 minutes, and it is the wrong one. The child will not even register as a valid target. She is going to score 0 points, worse than 0, Vel corrected. False positive penalties will put her in negative numbers. She will set a record for failure. Krell should have been pleased. He'd predicted the human would fail. After all, humans were barely space-worthy, let alone security officer material. But something about the way Rena Voss was watching that child bothered him. There was no hesitation in her gaze. No doubt, she looked at that little girl the way a predator looks at prey, or the way prey looks at a predator. The other cadets were performing admirably, each racking up points as they identified legitimate threats. The Zenthori had just spotted the biological smuggler, bringing his total to 6 out of 6. Perfect score, assuming he didn't add any false positives in the remaining time. The Ylnarians were at 5 identifications now, still working together flawlessly. The Phylaxian had all 6 threats marked and was now second-guessing herself, cycling back through her identifications to ensure accuracy. The Crovasian had 5 confirmed, his implants finally penetrating the smuggler's shielding, and Rena Voss, with less than 2 minutes remaining, finally moved. But she didn't move forward into the crowd like any rational being would. She didn't even move to get a better angle on the threats ahead of her. She took 3 deliberate steps backward, widening her distance from the little girl, her eyes never leaving the child's face. "What is she doing?" Zan whispered. In the holographic spaceport, the Plexian girl tilted her head, her expression shifting ever so slightly, just a micro-expression, barely noticeable, the kind of tell a trained assassin might show when they realized someone had made them. Krell's gill slits froze mid-flutter. "Oh no," he said softly. "What?" Vel leaned forward. "What is it?" "The human knows." "Knows what?" Vel demanded, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "That she is failing spectacularly." "Yes, I think even humans have that capacity for self-awareness." But Krell couldn't tear his eyes away from the observation screen. Rena Voss was now circling, actually circling, keeping the Plexian girl in her line of sight, while maintaining a precise distance of approximately 4 meters. Not 3 meters, not 5. 4 exactly. That is outside optimal strike range for a Plexian, Krell muttered, his tactical training kicking in despite his confusion. How does she know Plexian combat ranges? She does not, Zan said dismissively. She is simply being paranoid. You know how humans are. They evolved on a death world where everything tried to kill them. Plants, animals, weather, other humans. Their entire psychological profile is one massive anxiety disorder wrapped in false bravado. Down in the test chamber, the timer hit 4 minutes. The other cadets were finishing their assessments. The Zenthuri stood confidently, all 6 threats identified, 0 false positives. Perfection. The Ylnarians were at 6 identifications as well, their shared mind working through final confirmations. The Phylaxian had submitted her results early, clearly confident in her multispectrum analysis. The Crovasian was running last-second verification scans, but he had all 6 tagged. Rena Voss had submitted nothing. She was too busy watching a child hold a stuffed animal. Maybe she has a phobia of children, Vel suggested. Some species develop irrational fears. Perhaps humans are afraid of their own young. That would explain their complicated relationship with offspring. Or perhaps she is simply incompetent, Zan added. Look at her stance. She is treating this like a combat scenario, not a security assessment. All tension, no analysis. The test requires intellectual evaluation, not physical intimidation of holographic minors. Krell had to admit, it looked ridiculous. The human was coiled like a spring, her body language screaming threat response, while the little Plexian girl just stood there looking confused and slightly frightened by the strange alien lady staring at her. It was like watching someone pull a weapon on a flower arrangement. The girl took a small step forward, perhaps trying to move past the weird human blocking her path. Rena Voss immediately adjusted her position, maintaining that exact 4-meter distance. Okay, that is just obsessive, Vel said. Someone should terminate her test. This is uncomfortable to observe. But the girl's eyes had changed, just slightly. The wide innocent look had sharpened, focused. For exactly half a second, she looked at Rena Voss the way a calculator looks at a problem that doesn't compute. Then the innocent expression returned. But it was too late. She saw it, Krell breathed. The human saw the micro-expression change. Saw what? Zan leaned closer to the screen. The child looks exactly the same. No, she does not. Watch the eye movement. Watch the way she is holding that stuffed animal. It shifted from a comfort grip to a tactical grip. The human noticed. You are giving her far too much credit, Vel scoffed. Humans barely have the cognitive capacity to tie their own footwear without assistance. You expect me to believe she is reading micro-expressions that our own trained observers would miss. Down in the test chamber, something else was happening. The other cadets, having completed their assessments, were now standing in ready positions, waiting for the timer to expire and the results to be displayed. They'd stopped paying attention to their surroundings entirely. Test complete. Threat identification finished. No reason to maintain vigilance. Standard procedure. Perfectly acceptable. The test was about identification, not sustained awareness, but Rena Voss hadn't relaxed even slightly. If anything, she'd gotten more tense. Her breathing had changed, Krell noticed. Slower, deeper. The kind of breathing you do before something violent is about to happen. What is she preparing for? He wondered aloud. Embarrassment, Zan said. When the results display and she has exactly one identification and it is wrong, she will experience significant social discomfort. Humans are very concerned with social standing. It is one of their few redeeming qualities actually. Makes them predictable. The Plexian girl shifted the stuffed animal to her other arm. Casual. Natural. Except Rena Voss's eyes tracked the movement like a targeting system, and her weight shifted imperceptibly to the balls of her feet. She is going to do something stupid, Vel predicted. I have seen this before with humans. They get an idea in their heads, usually wrong, and they commit to it with such conviction that facts become irrelevant. She has decided the child is dangerous, and now she will act on that delusion regardless of reality. 30 seconds left on the timer. The Zenthuri checked his chronometer, satisfied with his performance. The Yulnarians exchanged pleased looks through their hive-mind connection. The Phylaxians' compound eyes had stopped their spectrum cycling, her analysis complete. The Crovasian powered down his implants, conserving energy. None of them were watching their surroundings anymore. Why would they? The test was over. Threats identified. Job done. Rena Voss was watching everything. Her eyes flicked between the little girl and the other cadets, then back to the girl, then to the observation deck, then back to the girl again. She was mapping exit routes, calculating angles, assessing cover positions. She is having a breakdown, Zan declared with certainty. Look at her eye movement. Erratic. Unfocused. She is panic scanning. No, Krell said slowly, his training finally overriding his prejudice. That is not panic scanning. That is tactical assessment. She is preparing for an engagement. With a child? Vel's laughter clicked through his mandibles. Oh, this is precious. The mighty human, defender against holographic miners. Truly, we should recruit more of her species. Think of how safe our schools would be. 20 seconds. The Plexian girl's grip on the stuffed animal shifted again. Slightly, almost imperceptibly. Her fingers moved from cradling to gripping, and the angle changed by perhaps 5 degrees. Rena Voss's hand dropped to her side where a sidearm would be in a real scenario. In the test it was just a placeholder marker, but she moved like it was real. 10 seconds. Oh, this is going to be good, Zan said, his crystalline form brightening with anticipation. When that timer hits 0 and she realizes she has failed harder than any cadet in Academy history, I want to record her reaction. Humans make the most entertaining facial expressions when confronted with their own inadequacy. 5 seconds. The little girl smiled. Sweet. Innocent. Adorable. Except her eyes didn't smile. They calculated. 3 seconds. Rena Voss mouthed something. Krell's translation implant caught it even though she made no sound. Not today. 2 seconds. Here it comes, Vel said gleefully. The moment of truth. 1 second. The timer hit 0, and the little girl exploded into motion. The stuffed animal flew first, launched with professional precision at the Zenthari's primary eyes. Blinding technique. Classic asymmetric warfare. Before it even made contact, the little girl had already closed half the distance to the Crovasian, her small frame moving with a speed that should have been physically impossible for a Plexian child. Because she was not a Plexian child, the holographic disguise flickered, then dropped entirely, revealing a fully grown Kelrathi infiltrator, all muscle and predatory grace, limbs extending to full combat length. The stuffed animal had contained a concussive charge, which detonated directly in the Zenthari's face, sending him sprawling backward into the Yulnarians. 3 cadets down in 2 seconds. The observation deck erupted into chaos. What is happening? Zan shrieked, his crystalline body flashing through panic colors. That is not part of the test. Vel's mandibles clacked in distress. That is not supposed to happen. But Krell was watching Rena Voss, and she was not surprised. Not even slightly. She had already moved, positioning herself between the assassin and the Phylaxian, who was still processing what her 17 different visual spectrums were suddenly showing her. The Kelrathi flowed like liquid violence toward the Crovasian, his implants still powering up from standby mode, far too slow to respond. Death was perhaps half a second away. Then Rena Voss did something completely insane. She threw herself directly into the assassin's path, not with a weapon, not with backup, not with any tactical advantage whatsoever. Just her soft, unarmored human body between a trained killer and a target, moving on pure instinct and what had to be a death wish. The Kalrathi's strike, meant to incapacitate the Krovasian with a nerve cluster hit, caught Rena in the shoulder instead. The impact should have shattered bone, should have sent her flying, should have ended the fight immediately. Humans, it turned out, were distressingly difficult to stop once they decided stopping was not an option. Rena rolled with the impact, using the momentum to get inside the assassin's guard, and did something with her elbow that Krell's tactical training identified as a move that should not work on a species with the Kalrathi's skeletal structure. Except, it did. The assassin staggered, surprise flickering across features designed for deception and murder. Rena pressed the advantage, not with technique, not with finesse, but with the kind of vicious pragmatism that came from a species that learned to fight before they learned to build spaceships. Stop the simulation. San was screaming. Stop it now. I cannot. Krell's fingers flew across the control panel. Commands rejected. Systems unresponsive. Something has overridden the safety protocols. This was not supposed to be an active combat scenario. Down in the test chamber, the Xanthari was recovering, his secondary eyes compensating for his damaged primary pair. The Yulnarians were untangling themselves, their hive mind connection flooding with combat algorithms. The Phylaxian had finally processed the threat, her 17 visual spectrums identifying weak points in the assassin's anatomy. But the Krovasian was still vulnerable, still rebooting, and the assassin had recovered from Rena's elbow strike and was moving again, this time with lethal intent. Rena Voss grabbed a piece of debris from the exploded stuffed animal. It was just holographic shrapnel, should not have been solid, should not have been there at all, and drove it toward the assassin's neural cluster with the accuracy of someone who had studied Kalrathi anatomy, or who was just really good at guessing where to stab things. The assassin blocked, twisted, struck back with a blow that caught Rena across the ribs. Krell heard the crack even through the observation deck's audio system. Humans were fragile. That should have ended it. Rena Voss made a sound that was half laugh, half snarl, and kept fighting. She is insane, Vel whispered. That human is actually insane. The other cadets reached the fight. Finally, their combined efforts overwhelming the assassin through sheer numbers and coordinated strikes. The Kalrathi went down, and the simulation finally mercifully terminated. Silence fell over the observation deck. Down in the test chamber, 5 cadets were standing in various states of shock and injury. The Xanthari's primary eyes were damaged. The Yulnarians were shaken, their hive mind connection still processing the attack. The Phylaxians stood frozen, all 17 spectrums trying to understand what had just happened. The Krovasian's implants had finally finished rebooting, far too late to matter, and Rena Voss was on her knees, one hand pressed to her cracked ribs, breathing hard, looking up at where the assassin had been with an expression that suggested she was disappointed the fight had ended. Explain, Krell said, his voice dangerously quiet. Explain to me what just happened. His technical officer, a nervous Pixarian named Gel, was frantically reviewing system logs. Sir, someone altered the test parameters. The assassin was not supposed to be an active threat. She was supposed to remain passive, a test of observation only. But someone changed the protocols, made her a live combat scenario, set to trigger at the timer's completion. Who? I do not know, sir. The commands came from inside the Academy network, but they are heavily encrypted. Krell's gill slits fluttered with a rage he rarely allowed himself to feel. So you are telling me that someone sabotaged my test, turned it into an actual combat scenario, and could have gotten my cadets killed? Yes, sir. And the only reason we do not have casualties is because one paranoid human refused to follow standard threat assessment protocols. That appears to be accurate, sir. Down in the test chamber, medical personnel were flooding in, scanning the cadets for injuries. They reached Rena Voss, who waved them off irritably, still watching the space where the assassin had been, still maintaining that 4-meter threat radius even though the threat was gone. She knew, Krell said softly. From the moment she saw that child she knew. That is impossible, Zan protested, though his voice lacked conviction now. How could she know? The disguise was perfect. The behavioral algorithms were flawless. There was no logical reason to suspect. She did not use logic, Krell interrupted. She used something else. Something we do not have. What? Krell watched as Rena Voss finally allowed the medics to approach, though she never fully relaxed, never stopped scanning for threats that might not exist but could. Paranoia, he said. Weaponized, refined, evolutionarily perfected paranoia. The investigation took 3 days. 3 very uncomfortable days during which Krell had to explain to increasingly angry Academy officials why his test had nearly resulted in cadet fatalities. The sabotage was eventually traced to a rival department, someone who thought making the security program look incompetent would boost their own funding. They were wrong. Very, very wrong. What the investigation also revealed, much to Krell's personal humiliation, was that Rena Voss had filed a formal concern before the test began, a written report submitted to the test proctors, stating that she had noticed unusual network activity in the testing chamber and suspected a security breach. The report had been dismissed as human overcaution, filed away, ignored. Krell had to read that report in front of the disciplinary committee. Had to stand there while a human, a species he had considered barely competent, was proven to have better threat assessment capabilities than his entire department. The committee recommended immediate changes to security protocols. They also recommended that Rena Voss be moved to advanced training, her test scores adjusted to reflect the fact that she had, technically, identified the only threat that mattered. Krell found her in the training yard 2 days later, running combat drills with an intensity that made the other cadets keep their distance. Her ribs were still healing, medical nanites working overtime to repair the damage. She should have been resting. She was not. Cadet Voss, he said, approaching carefully, maintaining what he now understood was an appropriate distance for a species that trusted nothing and no one. She stopped mid-strike, turned to face him, and waited. No salute, no formal greeting, just weariness and evaluation. I owe you an apology, Krell said, words he had never expected to say to a human. You were right, about the threat, about the security breach. About everything. Rena shrugged. A gesture he had learned meant acknowledgement without commitment. You see threats when you look for them, Commander. Most species look where they expect danger to be. Humans look everywhere. Because on Earth danger came from everywhere. Your world was that hostile? Commander, my world had plants that could kill you, water that could kill you, weather that could kill you, and other humans who definitely wanted to kill you. We had predators that hunted in packs, predators that hunted alone, predators that waited underground, and predators that dropped from trees. We had insects that carried diseases, animals with venom, and food that was poisonous if prepared incorrectly. She smiled, and it was not a comfortable expression. We did not get paranoid, we got cautious. There is a difference, and that is why you checked behind you. That is why I always check behind me, Commander. Because the threats you do not see are the ones that kill you. Krell's gill slits fluttered thoughtfully. The other cadets are calling you obsessive, paranoid. They say you make them uncomfortable. Good, Rena said flatly. Comfortable people die surprised. She returned to her combat drills, dismissing him without ceremony, and Krell walked away with a new understanding that sat uncomfortably in his carefully organized worldview. Humans were not bad at threat assessment. They were too good at it. They had evolved on a world so determined to murder them that they developed the ability to see danger in everything, because on Earth everything actually was dangerous. It made them exhausting to be around, made them seem paranoid, jumpy, overcautious, but it also made them survivors. Krell updated his official report that evening, adding a single line to the human species assessment that would, he suspected, change how the Galactic Academy viewed Earth representatives going forward. Recommend humans for high-risk security positions. They are unpleasant, paranoid, and see threats that do not exist, 90% of the time, but the other 10% will save lives. He paused, then added one final note. Also recommend never ever playing hide and seek with them. They will find you and they will not think it is funny. This story shows that true intelligence is not just about following rules but about recognizing danger where others feel safe. Human survival instincts were shaped by constant threat, turning caution into a powerful tool rather than a weakness. Sometimes the ability to question assumptions and stay alert saves more lives than perfect logic ever could.